about love and what it means. If I can get my mouse to work. There we go. So, love is not primarily a relationship to a specific person, according to Eric Fromm. It is an attitude, an ordination of character, which determines the relatedness of the person to the whole world as a whole, not toward one object of love. So, for Fromm, the basis of love is a general acceptance and orientation to the world that is more positive. So, when we talk about love in this chapter, it's important to sort of separate your probably pretty strong association between romantic love, love towards a person who may become a mate or something like that, and the other kinds of love that we're also talking about, love for friends or love for our family members or our love for other members of the human race, towards our pets, things like that. So keep that in mind that whenever I use the word love, I'm using this more expansive term. Let's start off by talking about love as an attachment style. Probably a lot of you have studied attachment theory before, so I'll just be reminding you a little bit in case you've forgotten some details. So attachment is usually used as a description of a child's ability to count on a caregiver, to be available, to be responsive when the child needs that caregiver's attention, that caregiver's support, comfort, things like that. So attachment is a term that is oftentimes used as a noun. It's a thing, right? You are attached or you're not attached. But it's also sort of a verb, right? It's sort of describing this, this active ability to count on your caregiver. It breeds a sense of security or not. So we know what kind of attachment a child has to their caregiver from their performance in the strange situation. Now, you all, I'm going to guess, are not between the ages of 12 months and 24 months. So this technique would not work for you. In fact, it wouldn't work for any child who's not between the ages of 12 months and 24 months. So if you know a child who's older than that, or certainly younger than that, do not attempt to use this technique to assess their attachment style. In the strange situation, we put generally historically a mother and their child in something that would be strange to them. So like a laboratory at a university or a waiting room or something like that, someplace that they're not familiar. And what we're going to study is how the baby reacts, the toddler, the 12 to 24 month old reacts while the caregiver is present, while the caregiver is out of the room, and then how the baby reacts when the caregiver returns. Historically, it's been a mother and baby, but some studies have looked at other kinds of caregivers. Certainly dads have been looked at, grandmothers have been looked at, daycare providers, different kinds of caregivers. The one requirement is that it be a person who the baby has a relationship with. That's the key thing. So I'm going to kind of go through descriptively all of the different attachment types with you, and you're going to notice that there are links to videos that pertain to each of the styles. And so I'm going to place those into the playlist after this section so that you can kind of hear what I'm going to describe and then you can watch the videos. All right, so about 50% of babies who have been tested fall into the secure attachment type. And so during the experiment, while the caregiver is present, the baby is willing to explore the environment. They will frequently touch bases with their caregiver, maybe crawl over and show them something or vocalize to their caregiver to try and get a reaction from the caregiver, something like that. They reach out and they reassure themselves basically that the caregiver is still there and is still available. At some point during the study, the caregiver will receive a signal that they should get up and leave the room. Usually it's a knock on the door or something like that to indicate to the caregiver it's time to get up and leave. Now, sometimes the caregiver will be given instructions to call the child's name and get their attention and then say bye bye and then walk out the door. Other scenarios, like the one I'm going to show you in the video, they don't do that step. They just get up and leave. So different studies have kind of done it in different ways. But the important thing is to make sure that the baby has noticed that the mom has left or that the caregiver has left. That's the important thing. When you have a securely attached baby, they tend to protest as mom's leaving and then after mom has left. And I put the word protest because they probably will cry. They might crawl after mom or toddle after mom if they can walk. They might pat on the door with their hands open, crying. If they could talk, they might say something like, "You forgot me, come back," something like that. When mom comes back into the room, the problem that the baby has been upset about has been solved. Mom has returned or caregiver has returned. And so when the mom or caregiver picks up the baby and starts to comfort the baby calms down really quickly. The baby settles, stops crying, dries their tears and goes back to exploring. And so this is sort of the pattern that you would expect when a baby who trusts their caregiver is upset that the caregiver has left them. And then when the caregiver returns and solves the problem, "Hey, I'm back," now the baby can return to what they had been doing and go back to exploring as long as they know that their caregiver is present. So that's a typical, securely attached baby. With the insecurely attached types, there are two types that fall under this category. And about half of babies are secure and about half of babies are in the insecure category. About half of the insecure babies are what we call avoidant. These babies are freely exploring the environment, this strange situation that they've never seen before. They're freely exploring that environment without any concern about whether mom's there, whether mom is paying attention to them or not, caregiver, whoever's being tested with them. So this is an overly confident and overly independent exploration. We're not talking about a baby who's, relying on their caregiver for a sense of security. This is a baby who is completely secure without needing any feedback from their caregiver. When the caregiver leaves, I listed this as unmoved because they may not even move towards the departing caregiver. They may not crawl after them like the securely attached baby. They may not even really look when the caregiver is leaving because they are unmoved emotionally as well. It doesn't bother them to be left alone in this strange situation. The insecure avoidant type is sort of the motivation for some researchers to have their caregiver literally call the baby's name and say, get their attention and then say bye-bye and then leave. Because sometimes the avoidantly attached babies are just so unmoved by the departure of their caregiver that some researchers have wondered, are we sure that they know that the caregiver left? I mean, they didn't even really look up. Maybe they don't know that they've been left here. Maybe they can't hear. Like, what's happening? Why does this baby not care that their caregiver has left? And so that's why some have implemented this, additional step in the design. When the caregiver returns, again, I was not upset that you were gone, so it doesn't benefit me that you came back. I'm not going to crawl to you. I don't need to be comforted. I don't need any of that because I wasn't upset that you left. So again, I listed it as unmoved because they may not go to the mom or caregiver. They may not show any kind of emotional relief or anything because they hadn't shown any distress. The other type of insecure attachment is what we call ambivalent, or some researchers call it a resistant attachment. And this is where you have a baby who, the word ambivalent means they behave in kind of inconsistent ways because they're not exactly sure how they feel. And so while the caregiver is present, ambivalent babies are very clingy. They may sit at their mom's or their caregiver's feet and not explore the environment at all. They may want to be held in their caregiver's lap, and they don't want to look around. They're not interested in the toys. They're not interested in anything. They just are clinging. When their caregiver leaves, they they're not just protesting like a securely attached baby, they are mad at being abandoned. And so they behave in ways that you might call a tantrum, right? Where they're screaming and maybe there aren't even any tears, but their faces are all red and like they're very upset. And then when the caregiver comes back, here I am, the solution to your problem. You're so upset because I left. Here I am, I'm back. And this ambivalent baby who's not sure whether they can trust this caregiver or not may punish that caregiver. The caregiver comes back and the baby might slap their face or squeeze their cheek or pull their hair or stiff arm them, let me down, arch their back, let me down. I wanted you to pick me up. I want you to be a source of comfort, but I'm mad. So put me down. I don't want you holding me. Stop touching me. So you have this ambivalence, right? I want to cling to you. I want you to be my source of comfort. I want you to be the thing that makes me feel secure in this situation. But I don't feel secure when you're here. And I can't trust that you're not going to abandon me here. And when you come back, I'm not sure if you understand the depth of my upsetness. And so I'm going to punish you for this. So obviously I'm projecting a lot more sophisticated thinking onto these ambivalent babies. So you can definitely tell that these babies have sort of the relationship is not built on good, strong trust. The securely attached baby, there is good, strong trust that they recognize that their caregiver is going to take care of them. There's trust on the side of the avoidant also, but the trust is a bad trust. I know that you're not going to take care of my needs. I know that you have been unreliable in the past and unpredictable in the past, so I can't rely on you. So the avoidant attachment is also kind of a trust issue, but it just is sort of like, I've given up. I can't trust you. So we have our last one there. So how do our attachments form? This is the question of the century. I'm sure that even without me telling you anything else about it, you're pretty sure that the secure attachment is the one you would want with a baby and a caregiver. That seems like the advantageous one. But how do you end up with these different attachments? So we have, if I were to phrase it in one sort of simple phrase, I would say we have a lot of evidence that securely attached parents or caregivers tend to behave in a very responsive way. That's the one thing I can say very consistently is that is different between a securely attached caregiver and baby and one of the insecure types is that the securely attached caregiver is very responsive to the needs of the baby in that situation. And usually for the first year of their life is the important time to form the kind of trust relationship that would allow a baby to feel securely attached to their environment, to their caregiver. So here's a little video for you in the playlist that'll help to explain how attachment styles develop. I'll wrap up this lecture with well, what's the difference? What does it matter? What kind of attachment you have? Well, there is some literature on the effects of the type of attachment that you form to your caregiver when you are a baby, and then how you function in the world as you age. Oh, well, I thought I had a list, but apparently that's a surprise. So one thing that we see is that securely attached toddlers tend to be children, young, elementary school age children, who are more willing to take risks as long as it's in a secure situation, right? When they know they have the backup of a trusted caregiver, they're willing to take risks. Just like as a toddler, they were willing to explore as long as they had that backup. So we have, confident but recognition of their limitations as, sort of underlying their exploratory behavior. We see as the child continues to age, their friendships tend to be more secure. The type of attachment that you have as a toddler oftentimes predicts the security that you might display in friendships as you get older. How much you are how confident you are that your friends actually care about you and that your friends that they can go do something with someone else, but they will still be your friend. These kinds of thoughts that, a lot of us struggle with, right? That our friends, do they really like us? Things like that. The more securely attached, the more confident you can be in those kinds of friendships. as aging progresses, and now we're into maybe adolescence where we're going to have our first romantic relationships, again, attachment style helps to predict the kind of romantic attachment that a person might have. And so we find that people, as they age in romantic relationships, they tend to, we see securely attached toddlers tending to be securely attached romantic partners. Insecurely attached partners who are avoidant as toddlers might be sort of the grown-up version of avoidant in their romantic relationships, where maybe they keep romantic partners at arm's distance. Maybe they enter into situationships instead of relationships because they don't want to get their feelings hurt. So they sort of prevent that from ever happening by never getting too close, by just sort of always keeping people at arm's distance. A person who was an ambivalent toddler may be kind of an ambivalent adult romantic partner who perhaps is clingy, like very dependent, very suspicious. Maybe they're always worried that their partner is going to cheat, or maybe they're afraid that they're going to be abandoned. These are reactions that may stem from the type of attachment that the person had as a toddler. So let's go ahead and take a little break here. I want you to watch the playlist that contains these examples and the explanation of where the attachment style comes from. And then we'll come back and take a little quiz to see what kind of love style you have.